Hey, welcome to the October 15th Clifton Park Town Board meeting. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, Lisa, will you call the roll?
Councilman Whalen?
Here.
Councilwoman Standard? Here. Councilman Romano?
Here.
Councilwoman Wallowitz? Here. Supervisor Durr?
Here. There's no minutes to consider this evening. Any communications or announcements? Yes.
Thank you. We are entering into our 6th year of Youth Corps, and we are still accepting applications. Our trainings do start tomorrow night. They will be held here at 7 o'clock tomorrow night. It is not too late if kids want to join us. It is an amazing program where we train you to be attorneys and other courtroom roles, and you give first-time youthful offenders a second chance to make things right and take some accountability and responsibility for their actions. So we do have a lot of applicants this year. We're looking forward to another strong year of Youth Court, and you can give as little time as you can. It's really a good program for busy schedules, or you can commit a lot of time to it, whatever it is that your schedule can handle. So tomorrow night, our first training, we've got 4 scheduled this year, and they're going to be good, and I'm looking forward to another year of Youth Court. Thank you.
Great. Yes, and anybody 7th grade and up? Well, it stops at 12th grade. Some of you adults out there I know are very interested. So it stops at 12th grade, but it's a fantastic program entering our 6th year. I want to thank Councilwoman Standard and our entire team for the great job that they do each year. So we'd like as many participants as possible. Each year we get triple digits new participants. So we want to do that again for 2019-20 school year. All right, Jim, did you?
Yeah,
Councilman Romano.
Just like to make everybody aware of this Saturday, October 19th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at Veterans Memorial Park will be the 5th annual Things That Go Bump in the Night. This year, the animals you might not know live here, and that is a family-friendly interactive nature stations of a half-mile guided tours. So it's been very successful the last 4 years, and we're looking forward to having a big audience this year. And this Saturday night at Veterans Memorial Park, 5:30 to 7:30.
Yeah, it's a great time for the kids and families. We've had a tremendous turnout each year, and so come on up to Veterans Park. We've added a couple hundred acres to that park in the last several years. So it's the park's bigger and better than ever. There's much more to explore than ever. So we'd love to have you join us that evening. Anyone else? All right, we do have several resolutions. First, I'll ask Councilman Whalen to talk about cybersecurity, because it is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Obviously something that hits home to a lot of folks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Supervisor, and thank you for the opportunity. Given that October is National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, we thought it was a good opportunity to provide some high-level information for the public. I know we've got some youth here. Statistically, actually, young people, millennials, are more susceptible to cyber fraud and cyber crime than non-millennials, people like me who are older. I'm not exactly sure why that is. I think statistically they think it's because millennials tend to be more trusting, more apt to click on links, accept friend requests from people they don't know. So hopefully you learned something here. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask. Even if you're like our Highway Superintendent Dan Bullen, want to talk about a friend that had something happen to them, feel free to, that's a joke, feel free to mention that. So, again, so National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. This is announced by the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. The theme this year is Own It, Secure It, and Protect It. IT standing for Information Technology, or IT. One thing I want to try to actually scare people a little bit here is to recognize that you are a target. In much the same way you should lock your doors at night, lock your car, don't leave your wallet sitting out and about. you are a target. You are a potential a target for hackers and cyber criminals out there, here in the United States and everywhere around the world. Don't ever say it won't happen to me. Every day, there's articles in the newspaper about communities, including those here locally in the capital region, that have been victim of attacks, such as ransomware attacks. I'm sure a lot of those individuals said, there's nothing I have to worry about here in the capital region in upstate New York. We're not a target. Unfortunately, you are. So if you follow these steps, hopefully this will prevent you from being a victim of cybercrime. One thing you can do is think twice before you click on a link or an attachment in an email or a text message or a social media message. If you think the email is legitimate, you don't have to click on the link. If you think you get an email from your bank or your insurance company, you can go to their website directly and actually click on a link on their website as opposed to clicking on the link directly from your email. If you don't know the sender, or if you have doubts about what you received, don't click on the link. In fact, what you should do is if you have doubts, call up the company or the person that may have sent it to you and ask them if that's legitimate. I can say from personal experience, this actually happened to me where I had gotten an email that seemed to be from my bank. I called them up and they said they had no record of ever having sent me an email asking me to click on a link. So I made sure I went ahead and deleted that. So when in doubt, call up the company, call the person that you think may have sent it to you and ask them, is this legitimate? Did you really send this to me? Don't give out personal information. If someone calls you up that you're not expecting and asks for your credit card number, this happens all the time. You get phone calls from the IRS, from the credit card collection company, things like that make no sense. Don't give out personal information. Be doubtful. Be skeptical. Social engineering, if you've heard of that phrase, that's a process where a bad actor is trying to deceive you and trick you into giving out information. So I may have information, I may have some information about you, perhaps I got from your Facebook page, Instagram, just a general Google search, and because I have a little bit of information, and I claim to be from a company that you trust, you now give me more information which allows me perhaps to hijack your identity, open up a credit card account in your name, and steal either money from you or on your behalf. So again, just because someone has some of your information doesn't make them legitimate. Be skeptical, be doubtful, challenge them and question them. If you push too hard, they're going to give up and they're going to move on to the next target. Pay close attention to websites. A common trick that bad actors will use is to use variations on websites. So if you're looking for the Town of Clifton Park website, for instance, it's cliftonpark.org. It's not cliftonpark.com. If you go to cliftonpark.com, that's a different website. Now, that's not a bad website, but those are common tricks that bad actors will use. Or I put in here, if you're looking for business.com, and I put busness.com, taking out the I. That's a common trick that bad actors will use to try to trick you into going what you think is the correct website, but it's actually a bad website. You enter your credentials, and now they've got all of your information, voluntarily supplied by you. All right. Set secure passwords. Don't share your passwords. Avoid using common words, phrases, or personal information in your password. Your password should not be password. It shouldn't be 1, 2, 3. These are common things that people do, but I would advise you against doing that. Use complex passwords. There's a trend in the industry now. It used to be you have to use uppercase letters, lowercase letters, characters. Now what you're seeing is people using long passwords. Perhaps a sentence that means something specifically to you. It could be 40 characters or more, something that's easy for you to remember. But a computer program out there is going to have difficulty hacking that password. Don't use passwords across multiple platforms. So don't use the same password for your personal email account, your work email address, banking, insurance information. Use different passwords across those platforms. Update your passwords. If you think you've been compromised, change all of your passwords. It's going to be a challenge. I know it's going to be a pain in the neck, but I would encourage you to change your passwords if you think you've been compromised. Most importantly, don't share your passwords with anybody. John, can I get your bank password?
Absolutely.
Wrong answer. We're going to start from the beginning, just for John. Don't share your passwords with anybody. Don't write them. Avoid the temptation to write them down. That's why we encourage you to use complex passwords, but something that you can remember easily without having to write down. Update and patch. What does this mean if you're not involved in information technology? Your operating system, antivirus, browser, other software, keep them up to date. Many people who fall victim to these attacks, statistics show, didn't update their operating systems. Whether it's your iPhone or your computer, whether it's an Android update, an iOS update, make sure you update your phone. Those aren't just enhancements to make the user experience better. Oftentimes those are security updates because someone has discovered there's a vulnerability in their system, and the developers are working to fix those mistakes. So make sure you update your system, because people who don't update their system are more likely to fall victim to attack. Apps on your mobile devices. If you have a mobile device, whether it be a phone, an iPad, a tablet, whatever, make sure you update the applications on those as well periodically. If you don't have it set up to update automatically, go through the process and update those applications. Finally, multi-factor. If you're not, this is a big one for me personally. Always an educational thing when I talk to people. If you don't use multi-factor, consider it. Multi-factor is when you have to go through two layers to access, whether it be your bank account or some other application. So if you go to your bank account, for instance, you enter your username, you enter your password, and then the bank will send you a one-time code to your mobile device that you have to then enter as a second layer of security. There's a lot of challenge on people who don't want to go through multi-factor because it's more difficult. It takes more time. They want to just quickly get into their bank account information or whatever website it is. But multi-factor will make it more difficult for people to hack into your account. Nothing's a fail-safe, and there's no silver bullet that will prevent you from being a victim of cybercrime. But the more things that you can do to make it more difficult for a bad actor to access your personal information will make them more likely to move on to somebody else. So if you go through all of these factors and apply all of these tips, hopefully it will help prevent you from being a cyber criminal. This is all public information. It's all out there. Certainly Google on DHS or other websites information on cybersecurity, and make sure you help protect yourself. Any questions anybody has?
Just be careful what links you click on when you're looking for cybersecurity information.
Absolutely, that's right. We had some references here on the first page. StaySafeOnline.org, and also U.S. Department of Homeland Security information there.
Great. Yeah, this is something we can get online too. Some good tips.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Something that we can all be susceptible to, unfortunately. It's seems like every year that goes by, the efforts to hack into systems and play games with people's personal property on their electronic device just continues to ramp up. So just be very careful. It's words of the wise. All right, and we have a resolution around that. Could you read through that resolution, please, Teresa?
Sure. A resolution recognizing October 2019 as National Cybersecurity Awareness Month, whereas the town board recognizes that it has a vital role in identifying, protecting its citizens from, and responding to cyber threats that may have significant impact to our individual and collective security and privacy. And whereas critical infrastructure sectors are increasingly reliant on information systems and technology to support financial services, energy, telecommunications, transportation, utilities, healthcare, and emergency response systems. And whereas the Stop Think Connect campaign serves as a national cybersecurity public awareness campaign implemented through a coalition of private companies, nonprofit and government organizations as well as academic institutions working together to increase the understanding of cyber threats and empowering the American public to be safer and more secure online. And whereas the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework has been developed as a free resource to help organizations large and small, both public and private, improve their cybersecurity practices through a practical approach to addressing evolving threats and challenges. And whereas maintaining the security of cyberspace is a shared responsibility in which each of us has a critical role to play, and awareness of computer security essentials will improve the security of Clifton Park's information, infrastructure, and economy. And whereas multiple federal and state agencies, including the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the New York State Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services, and the National Cybersecurity Alliance all recognize October as National Cybersecurity Awareness Month. Own it, secure it, protect it is the theme for 2019, and all employees and residents alike are encouraged to visit these websites, www.dhs.gov/stopthinkconnect or www.stopthinkconnect.org/ to learn about cybersecurity, to put that knowledge into practice, into their homes, schools, workplaces, and businesses. And hashtag #BeCyberSmart, hashtag #CyberAwareToday, and every day now, therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby proclaims the town of Clifton Park is officially supporting National Cybersecurity Awareness Month.
Okay, motion by Mr. Whalen, second by the remainder of the board, with their permission. Okay.
Councilman Whalen? Councilwoman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Walloway?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes, thank you. Next up on the agenda tonight, we have a very active Historic Preservation Commission, and I just want to thank all of them. Our town historian, John Shear's here tonight, and we'll hear from him, and we thank John for all his efforts. Our liaison to our historic preservation efforts, Councilman Whalen, do you want to kick this off?
Sure.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Barrett. So the Historic Preservation Commission, if you're not familiar with it, is a group of volunteers. I've been involved with the commission for almost 8 years, and so many of the members of the commission have been involved far longer than I have. They're volunteers. They devote a tremendous amount of their time, energy, and passion to preserving history here in Clifton Park. And tonight we're really honored to have 2 residents of the town share their homes with the community. Alex Marini is here. She heads up the subcommittee that adds homes to the Historic Register. And if you're not familiar with the Historic Register, these are homes that have significant historical impact here in Clifton Park. These residents allow the commission and John Shear to visit their homes, open their closet doors, look at the attic, look in the basement, look at the bed perhaps, so to learn about the architecture of the home, the history, and allow their homes to be recognized for the history we have here in Clifton Park. So certainly we thank the homeowners for adding their homes to the register. I always say, you're sharing your home with all of Clifton Park, and we appreciate that, we respect that, and thank you very much for that. So with that, I will ask our esteemed town historian, John Shearer, if you don't mind, to come up and give us a little bit of the history, first of the Nanning-Vischer House. Which has been around for almost 200 years.
Yes. I should have thought, I wish I'd known you were going to have this here. I would have brought some pictures of the houses so you could actually see them next time. The Nanning-Vischer House is at 393 Vischer Ferry Road. A lot of you may recognize the house. It's the old Gifford farm, not too far from Town Hall, just down the road. And that house is owned by Melanie Stakowitz, and her maiden name is Hafner. Some of you may recall Ernie and Pat. So it's a very interesting house. Interesting house to visit, and it revealed its architecture to us on the visit. The deeds helped us add further information, and we find that it was built by Nanning and Vischer. There was lots of Nanning-Vischers. This particular Nanning-Vischer was the son of Nicholas Vischer and Catherine Van Vranken. Again, 2 early names in our town history. And Nicholas, Nanning's father's house still stands as well. And that house is on Grooms Road, just west of Miller Road. It's now known as King Crest Farm, and it's owned by the Eels family. That house was built in 1802. So we figure that Nanning built his house in about 1828 on land that his father owned. And find that this is probably true because he's listed in the census records for that period in about that location. This house also appears on several maps. It appears on the 1851 map of Albany and vicinity, which includes the southern part of Clifton Park. And you can see the little black buildings on that map in 1851. It also appears on the 1856 map of Saratoga County, being owned by Nanning Vischer. However, he didn't really own the land until his father died. Nicholas died in 1844, and his estate went to his sons, one of whom was Francis Vischer. And so Francis Vischer sold his part of that land to his brother Nanning. So in 1844, he actually gets title to the land on the decease of his father, and his brother sending the land over to him. Francis Vischer's house still stands in town also. It's on Miller Road. It's the first house on the left as you go up from Grooms Road. So on the corner of, it was built on the corner of his father's property. Just a couple of sides here. Nanning's sister was Helena Vischer, and the town owns two coverlets made by Helena. One is dated 1819, and the other is dated 1827. She married a Van Arnhem and moved not too far to Drom's Road in the Van Arnhem house, which still stands in town. They later moved up to Dunning Street, up to Malta. Anyway, Nanning and his wife Phoebe acquired the 100-acre farm, as I mentioned, actually in 1844, although they were living there as early as 1828. They then sold the house in 1856, and they sold it to Halstead Close of Half Moon. And Nanning and Phoebe are buried in the Amity Reform Cemetery. So the place having passed through several ownerships, the house was later purchased in 1950, coming up into the 20th century, by Frank and Fran Townley. Some of you may remember them. They were civic leaders here in town. Frank had a lot to do with the centralization of the Shenendehowa School District. They owned it until 1955, and they sold it to Walter Gifford Jr. and his wife Catherine, and they owned the house for about 30 years. So that's sort of the story of the house. Now, inside, original features of the house include original paneling on the dining room, around the dining room fireplace wall, and some baseboard and other paneling. There's a nice corner cupboard in there. There's an original stairway and center gabled dormer. And this is from an 1840s remodeling. The house was remodeled in the 1840s in the Gothic Revival style. So that center dormer and the stairway is a gorgeous Gothic Revival stairway in the house. And there are early doors in woodwork. One of the things that helps give away the early date of the house as being 1828 is in the basement we found a fireplace support, fireplace and hearth support for an original fireplace which was in the dining room. So this sort of dates the house prior to 1840. Stoves came in about 1840. So it's a very interesting house, and as you can see, there's a lot of connections with the family that owned that house and the other houses that are still standing here in Clifton Park.
Nice.
Do you want me to go on to the other
Sure, that'll be
building?
fine. Thank you.
Okay. So the other house is the Henry Baker House, which was built in 1797. And this house is sort of at the junction of Clifton Park, Malta, and Half Moon. It's right up in the northeast corner of our town, right up in Round Lake. And so as the land goes back and forth, it's described as being in Clifton Park, or it could be Malta, or it could be Half Moon. So, Henry Baker, who was born in 1747 and died in 1834, was of the town of Half Moon, and he was a farmer. And he was the original purchaser of the property in 1797. And it's sort of interesting. He purchased this land in the town of Half Moon. Now you have to remember, we were part of the town of Half Moon in 1797. So he purchased it from Janet Smith, who was the widow of the Honorable William Smith, Esquire, who was the late Chief of Justice of the province of Lower Canada. And they purchased it for £190. Again, British currency was being used at that time. And this was on September 13th of 1797. Baker, by the way, is buried in the Prospect Hill Cemetery in Schuylerville. Henry and his wife Hannah of the town of Orange. Okay. Now, Clifton Park was known as Orange from 1819 to 1821. Didn't become Clifton Park till 1828. So when they say town of Orange, that means Clifton Park. And they sold their farm to Jeremiah Harris of the town of Orange on May 1st, 1819. So the Bakers owned the place for about 20 years, and they sold it to Jeremiah Harris. Harris was born in 1766, and he died in 1850. Jeremiah Harris is buried in the Dunning Street Cemetery in Malta. Now in 1852, something interesting happened here. In 1852, Samuel Van Heining of the town of Malta purchased the farm at auction. Evidently there were debts to be paid after Jeremiah passed away in 1850, and so the property was auctioned, and the auction was at the house. This Samuel Van Heining purchased the house, and the heirs received the money to pay off the debt. So it was actually the court of Saratoga County that auctioned off the house. So he acquired it in 1852 at the auction. And then in 1857, Samuel and his wife Lanny sold the farm to Samuel to Isaac Van Heining, who was a nephew of theirs. And Isaac owned it until 1869 and sold it to his brother Emmett Van Heining. That was in 1869. Now, interesting, on the 1866 map of Clifton Park, Levi Van Heining is listed as the owner. He's not the owner, he's just living there, so that's why his name is on the map. He happened to be a brother of Isaac and Emmett. In 1875, Emmett Van Heining and his wife Annie sold the farm located in the town of Clifton Park, and they sold it to Patrick O'Brien of the town of Clifton Park. And they owned it for a while, and the farm passed down through a number of others to the present owners. The house is interesting because some of the very early characteristics still exist. It retains some original features, including the original front doorway, which is a dead giveaway to its late 18th, early 19th century construction date. And it has a full second floor, which has never been finished off. Interesting, the fact that this second floor has not been finished off. So it's great because you can see the original construction beams up there in the attic. It has a very early profile with a rather steeply pitched gable roof, which is evidence again of its late 18th, early 19th century origin. Sue, one of the present owners, who's here tonight, is an amateur archaeologist and has found an assortment of early artifacts from digging around the house. And it's kind of interesting. She had those on display for us to look at. And I neglected to indicate that the house is located at 91 English Road, right off of 9W, and it's now owned by Sue Thompson, who's here, and Tom Schwerter. Schwerter, okay. So, there you have it.
Very good. Thank you so much, John. Appreciate that. And that gives us a good overview of the history of both the properties. Both properties rich in history. So, do you want to? The owners are here, so.
So if you Yeah, so if you're kind enough to add your house to the Historic Register, the Commission provides a plaque for you to add to the outside of your house to show to everybody that your house has been designated as a historic home in the town's Historic Register. And certainly you can contact us for assistance, if you need assistance, affixing the plaque to the house. So we're going to have Melanie and Sue and Tom come up.
And if you want to come up here with us, you know, the one very important part of this whole process is having homeowners who are willing to partner with the town, and this program wouldn't exist without that partnership. So we thank you very much for working with the town and being part of the Historic Register. Because of the active folks that were mentioned earlier and our liaison, Mr. Whalen, we've been able to add quite a few homes to the Historic Register in just the last several years. So I want to thank everybody publicly for your efforts. Jim?
Phil, you might be interested in knowing, this makes 66 places on our town.
66 total. Fantastic. Thank you, Jim. 66 total. So, very nice. So why don't you come over here, Melanie? You can hold that. It's very heavy.
That's beautiful.
Very good. Do you want to recognize every member of the commission that's here?
Absolutely, absolutely. So we have Alex Arini, who's here. We have Linda Seymour, Brian McGlinchey, Art Bordeaux, I'm sorry. Art's a new member, and I knew I was going to have a mental blank. Deanna Rubinger and John Shearer is here, who's our town historian. So not all the members of the commission are here, but again, they're volunteer members, putting countless hours serving the town. So it goes without saying, thank you to all of you for the work that you do on behalf of the commission, on behalf of the town.
You don't really have to share your house. We're not going to show up unexpectedly, or at least I don't think we will. But Councilman Whalen's right. You are sharing your home, and we hope that partnership is a two-way street on our behalf, that we can help you in the future in any way that we can. Because preserving the history of the town is obviously very important. Tomorrow night we'll be recognized over in Half Moon. We'll be recognizing the Gifford family for the wonderful job that they've done restoring the old barn on Meyer Road. So we're doing that jointly with the town of Half Moon tomorrow night, so that'll be nice as well. So, it's good to see you, Pat.
Oh, thanks, Bill.
Fantastic. Was there anything you'd like to say, or put you on the spot? Sue? Okay. Oh, Sue? Yeah.
We love our house so much. We lived there for 31 years, and we've always kept the style in mind as we renovated it and stabilized it. So it's nice to be recognized. Stabilized it. It's got a little stone foundation, just the pile of stones on.
Well, and that's the other part of historic homes. They are expensive in a lot of cases to ensure that you maintain the historical integrity, right? I mean, it's a lot more expensive
It's
than
more like
a
a
modern
hobby.
home.
Than a house.
Yeah, right.
And then there's a roof.
Well, thanks again.
Thank
We
you.
appreciate it,
Okay.
and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Thanks, Sue. All right, and if you have any questions about the program, please contact Councilman Whale, and he will walk you through the process and let you know what is entailed and how would things progress if you too decided to become part of our historic register. We didn't. We still have resolutions on this. Yeah. So So why don't we do those next? Well, actually, you know what? Why don't you read? Yeah, let's read through all of them, and then we'll go back and consider them individually.
A resolution designating the Vischer House to be placed on the Clifton Park Town Register of Historic Places, whereas the Historic Preservation Commission has recommended that the Nanny and Phoebe Vischer House, 393 Vischer Ferry Road, Clifton Park, be added to the Town Register of Historic Places, and whereas the Vischer House was built around 1828 on land owned by Nicholas Vischer and his son Nanning M. Vischer lived there with his wife Phoebe, perhaps as early as 1828, and raised 12 children there until 1856, when they sold their 100-acre farm, which has been subdivided and developed over the years until the 2-acre lot containing the home itself was purchased by its present owner, Melanie Stakowitz, whereas the home contains some of its original features, including the original paneling surrounding the dining room fireplace, an original stairway, and center gabled dormer from its 1840s remodeling of the house, early doors and woodwork, as well as an original early fireplace footing in the cellar, which helps to establish the 1828 date of the house. And whereas structures placed on this register will be given historic status for purposes of townwide recognition, and as such shall be provided with appropriate marker and inclusion in the town brochure, identifying all sites as so designated. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby adds the Nanning and Hannah Vischer House, 393 Vischer Ferry Road, Clifton Park, to the Town Register of Historic Places. A resolution designating the Baker House to be placed on the Clifton Park Town Register of Historic Places, whereas the Historic Preservation Commission has recommended that the Henry and Hannah Baker House, 91 English Road, Clifton Park, be added to the Town Register of Historic Places, and whereas the Baker House is on land acquired by Henry Baker from Janet Smith, widow of Honorable William Smith, Esquire, who was the Chief Justice of the Province of Lower Canada on September 13, 1797. And whereas the house was constructed in 1797, with Henry Baker and his wife Hannah in presence until 1819, when they sold their 126-acre farm, and the house has been passed down through a number of others until it was purchased by its present owners, Sue Thompson and Tom Schweider. And whereas the home retains some of its original features, including the original front doorway and a full second floor which has never been finished off. Some of the original floor plans still exist, and the house bears a steeply pitched gable roof, which is evidence of its late 18th century origin. And whereas structures placed on this register will be given historic status for purposes of townwide recognition, and as such shall be provided with appropriate marker and inclusion in a town brochure identifying all sites so designated. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board hereby adds the Henry and Hannah Baker House, 91 English Road, Clifton Park, to the Town Register of Historic Places. A resolution appointing James Harding Jr. and Patricia Howland as part-time clerks in the Office of the Receiver of Taxes and Assessments, whereas openings exist for 2 part-time clerks in the Office of Receiver of Taxes and Assessments, and whereas Rose Zavallo, Receiver of Taxes, recommends that James Harding Jr., 19 Casablanca Court, Clifton Park, and Patricia Howland, 60 Stony Creek Drive, Clifton Park, be hired to fill the positions, providing part-time seasonal service to the Receiver's Office for the tax season. Now therefore be it resolved that James Harding Jr., 19 Casablanca Court, Clifton Park, be appointed as a part-time clerk in the Receiver of Taxes and Assessment Office at grade 4, step 1, $20.68 per hour, to be paid from tax collector part-time. And be it further resolved that Patricia Howell, 60 Stony Creek Drive, Clifton Park, be appointed as a part-time clerk in the Receiver of Taxes and Assessments Office at grade 4, step 1, $20.68 per hour, to be paid from tax collector part-time. And be it further resolved that James Harding and Patricia Howland are hired effectively immediately. Duties to include paid training and the organizing and mailing of the 2019 property tax bills in December. A resolution authorizing Straight Line Industries to install pavement markings along portions of roads in Clifton Park, whereas the Superintendent of Highways Van Bull solicited quotes for street striping along portions of Van Franken Road, Waite Road, and Appleton Road, consisting of 0.51 millimeter wide white paint reflective pavement stripes and yellow paint reflective pavement stripes. And whereas Straight Line Industries submitted the sole quote to stripe the above referenced roads at the cost of 0.25 cents per linear foot and a total amount not to exceed $23,000. And whereas the Superintendent of Highways recommends that Straight Line Industries 5 Arrowhead and Cohoes be authorized to install the pavement markings. Now therefore be it resolved that Straight Line Industries Cohoes is authorized to stripe Van Franken Road and portions of Waite and Appleton Roads at a cost not to exceed $23,000 to be paid from Highway General Repairs Traffic Safety. A resolution authorizing the highway superintendent to install stop signs on Lincoln Town Drive at its T intersection with Berkshire Drive. Whereas the Highway Safety Committee reviewed existing conditions of the intersection under guidelines contained within the current New York State supplemental to the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, and whereas the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices provides guidance on the installation of stop or yield signs at intersections where restricted view exists due to topographical features and horizontal curvatures of Berkshire Drive's approach to the intersection for both travel lane directions. And whereas visual observation and field analysis by town staff and Highway Safety Committee representatives at the intersection have confirmed limited sight distance at the intersection, justifying the placement of a double-posted R11 stop control signs identified as Lincoln Town Drive with its intersection of Berkshire Drive. Whereas whereas the Highway Safety Committee has recommended the placement of a stop sign at this location. Therefore be it resolved that the Superintendent of Highways is hereby authorized to install stop signs for motorists as outlined above.
Very good. All right, Teresa, if you could go back and read the headings, please.
Resolution number 238 of 2019, a resolution designating the Fisher to be placed on the Clifton Park Town Register of Historic Places.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whalen, second by Mrs. Standard. Discussion.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowit?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 239 of 2019, a resolution designating the Baker House to be placed on the Clifton Park Town Register of Historic Places.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Whalen, second by Ms. Wallowit. Discussion. Okay, Teresa.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowit?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 240 of 2019, a resolution appointing James Harding Jr. and Patricia Howland as part-time clerks in the Office of the Receiver of Taxes and Assessment. So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen. Jim Harding is returning from last year, and he did a very good job. Patricia Howland, she would be a new hire in this part-time position, part-time seasonal position. It's only for a small portion of the year. I did interview her recently and would recommend her being hired. Any discussion? Okay.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Wallowit?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 241 of 2019, a resolution authorizing Straight Line Industries to install pavement markings along portions of roads in Clifton Park.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Wallowit, second by Mrs. Standard. Typically, we work with the county. The county does all of the striping in Clifton Park and partners with all the towns in the county, and it's a cost reduction sharing of services that has worked very well for many years. Apparently, there's a shortage of this special yellow paint that you see on many roads in Clifton Park and across the country. I guess there was an issue with the factory in China, of all places. Now we've outsourced our yellow paint on roads, so now we don't have that in our country either. So I don't know. Is it are they immune from tariffs, or is that part of the tariff list? I'm not sure, but
I don't know.
but I guess it's of no consequence this year. So there's limited supply out there. This is a private sector firm that we would partner with to get a few roads done. It is more expensive to do it this way. Next year, hopefully, and we certainly expect to be back working with the county as we have for many years. Again, as a sharing of services, the county Clifton Park, and all other municipalities. So hopefully we'll be back to normal next year. Any discussion, questions for Dan? All right, Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Balowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes.
Resolution number 242 of 2019, a resolution authorizing the highway superintendent to install stop signs on Lincoln Town Drive at its each intersection with Berkshire Drive.
So moved?
Moved by Mrs. Standard, second by Mr. Whalen. Mrs. Standard, did you
Yeah.
speak on this?
Thank you. This particular location has very difficult sight distance, so it becomes very unsafe for cars who are approaching the intersection. There's lots of kids in this area, and the resident who contacted me was really concerned about the kids that were playing in and around that area and cars approaching that intersection. So our Highway Safety Committee did what they do best, and they went out and they observed and they looked at all the things that they look at as far as sight distance is concerned for proper placement of stop signs, and determined this was a good location. So I'm glad that they came to that determination, because not every location is a good spot for a stop sign, but this was. So, yeah, that's it.
Great. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Thank you for being the liaison on that initiative. Any discussion, questions for Amy or Dan at this point? Okay. Teresa?
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Balowitz?
Yes.
Supervisor Barrett?
Yes. Okay. Public privilege. If you'd like to speak on a town matter, please raise your hand. We'll ask you to come forward. State your name and address for the record, and please keep it to 5 minutes or less. Is there anybody that would like to speak tonight?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Mr. Whalen.
Councilman Whalen?
Yes.
Councilwoman Standard?
Yes.
Councilman Romano?
Yes.
Councilwoman Balowitz? Supervisor Barrett?
Yes, thank you.